All right, I am armed with my face shield because I'm here at a very holy place in Abilene, Texas. I'm at the campus center here at McMurry University. Hello there, I'm Pierce Lopachin, and I'm with the Abilene Interfaith Council, and we have yet another interview to do. We like to interview prominent religious figures, and today we're going to be interviewing Marty CashBurless at the what is this chapel called, Marty?
This is Carlton Chapel, named after Bishop Alsey Carlton, who is the one who had the initial idea of providing us with a campus center for the students back in the 70s.
Wow, in the 1970s.
1970s. Mm-hmm. This was actually opened in December of 1979. Okay. I graduated in the spring of 1978, and this was a lawn.
So
it was a surprise.
You didn't get to enjoy this when you were here at McMurry.
Nope. That happened. They broke ground in the fall of '78, and then got into it in December of 1979. It's been here ever since.
So take us into the
chapel
and kind of show us the different evolution of this chapel, because you were telling me earlier that this didn't exactly look as it is.
Correct.
As we're seeing it today.
Yeah, the original facility had a more vaulted ceiling.
Okay.
Now we have the sound baffles that do help.
Right.
This paneling was dark, and then there were wooden pews with red cushions, which seems to be a United Methodist tendency to go with that bright red.
Yes,
so a little
okay.
Pentecost red there. When I got here in 2017, my predecessor, the Reverend Jeff Lust, came in and they went ahead and lightened the walls, redid the light fixtures, redid the carpet, and put in chairs so we could shift the space as needed. In fact, in January, we built a walking labyrinth with sheets and blankets, but it really worked. That people could come in, especially in the stress of the surge, the coronavirus surge. We gave people a chance to come in and walk some meditation walk, because we really want to invest in something like a canvas labyrinth. So that's on the planning board and on the wish list.
Well, I love coming into this chapel, but I was noticing something just outside before we go too much in depth with the chapel. Yeah. There's a very beautiful shrine. Is this what you're?
Well, it is our COVID memorial. We did an outdoor memorial service yesterday evening at Sacred Wind, our statue, which is really kind of our gathering place for a lot of that kind of grief and remembrance. Okay. And we had this outside, and thank goodness with the wind today, we said, no, we're going to do this inside. Yep. So we read from Lamentations. We had prayers not only for the campus community, but also for the caregivers who also lost their lives. Yep. And we kept special remembrances of them. We have, we placed it on the altar in here, something called a bowl of tears. Okay. And the bowl of tears we picked up from a seminary visit, in which you write down your grief, and you literally place it in the water, and of course what happens is the ink dissolves. But it's like you're offering your tears to God. And that's based on Psalm 58:6, when you ask God, it says, God, have you counted my tears? You either say, have you put them on my scroll, or the interpretation of the Hebrew also could say, have you carried my tears in your wineskin? And one of the things I have in my counseling office over in the Radford building is literally a tear catcher, so that I can kind of share that with people who are grieving. God catches our tears. And this has been a time of that kind of sorrow. So we're very involved in making sure that people have this opportunity to share that. And we're going to hopefully put pipe and stem up with a curtain, and we're going to put the names. Some of these you'll see tags closely. You'll see tags with names that are part of our campus community, that are uncles, cousins. I mean, I had a very dear friend that I lost. All of them are there. That's why the white carnations are there. So we're going to put up a curtain, we hope, and have people go ahead and put pieces of paper and pin that on there, so people have a chance to continue to grieve, because we don't really want them to swallow that. They need to be able to express it, and that helps that process.
And so this will continue to grow, this shrine here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And we're listening now, because there has been, I believe, a congressional I don't know what they call it, but Congress is talking about making a national day of mourning as an anniversary each year for that. Kind of like World AIDS Day is December 1st. Yes. This will be something like that for the pandemic. So we're anticipating that there's going to be another opportunity for that to happen. And so we try to give students and others, and it's the eighth week of the semester, something like that. It's really busy. But this has been, people come by and they will continue to do that. It's a good way to express things, and people need that opportunity. So we offered, when we were outside yesterday, also a chance, if you lost somebody and you didn't get a chance to say goodbye to them, write it down and then offer it. Offer it to God in whatever way that you're able to do that, so that that opportunity is not lost. Because that's sometimes what people will say, I never got to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Write the goodbye. It's okay. And then we put it in the bowl of tears. We know it gets offered up. So pretty simple.
Remarkable.
Hey, I got a great assistant chaplain.
Wonderful.
She comes up with the ideas and she says, is this too wild? And I say, yes or no. No.
So you're willing to admit that this is not your idea, it's
Not
your
completely.
assistant.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're a good team. We like to do lots of good things like that, but we always know one of our jobs on campus, for anyone, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, if you're struggling, we're here to help. Our job is care.
Sure.
You know, and that's really critical for us. And this is the time, I was telling somebody today, this is the time when you need to ask the heavy questions for yourself and struggle with them a bit in a place where it's safe enough to do that. And that's what we try to place. We try to give students that opportunity to struggle with it a bit, with a good, caring, supportive community behind them, so they can stretch and grow and figure out, this is not my mother's faith journey, it's not my father's faith journey, it's my faith journey. It's not my brother's faith journey, it's not my dog's faith journey. You know, those kind of things are important in the process. So I'm in year 30 of this job as a chaplain, so it's been good. Today's been a great day. I've had fun all day long.
Yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day today. That's where we're filming.
We got a
on
good Saints Day.
St. Patrick's Day. We're trying to wear green. Hopefully everyone's wearing. You're definitely wearing.
I did. It's
Well,
my favorite shirt.
There's a lot of activity going on because it is the campus center.
It
so when we come back, we're going to go and sit down and have a quick interview with Marty. So we'll be right back for that.
Stations Lacrosse with that, and it's open to anybody, including our Catholic students, if they want to be a part of it. Protestants, anybody that's curious. It's a real simple thing that he offers. It hails back to the opportunity in which an Orthodox congregation formed on campus way back in the early 2000s. That's all I know, that piece of it. But one of the priests there is one of our faculty members, Dr. Philip Lemasters. Mm-hmm. And so they started a congregation here, and then when this opportunity came in 2017, Dr. Brian Stewart said, can we use this space? And we said, sure. So with a few exceptions, they have been in here since March of 2017. So, yeah, and it's been an interesting, you know, when you're sharing space with others, what does that mean? And how do you work with each other? And it's worked out okay. He has this little water there, and he has his programs, and the kneelers, or wherever the kneelers are. I think they've been moved for a while. But there's these opportunities then for this space to not just be here as just a prayer space, but also a worship space. So when we did all of our virtual chapel in January and February, we did it in here. Last March, when we went online, we did all of our virtual chapel here from March until August. And we did something that was atypical because of the pandemic. We went ahead and had chapel in the summer. We never did that before. So it was a new experience for us. But we found that people tuned in and they were anxious to hear a word of hope. And that's what we tried to give them. And we had a really good experience with that. That was for us. It was exhausting at a certain point. We were like, oh man, we gotta do this again. But we also felt that we needed to be sure that we were responding to what was happening in the world around us.
Yep.
And to continue it through the summer made perfect sense. So we haven't evaluated what we're doing with that, but we stayed busy. You know, we created a Friday devotional. Dr. Waters was one of our speakers. We had a lot of really good people.
I know him.
Stuff.
I think I know
You know
him.
that. So we've been lucky.
Yep.
We've been very fortunate that we are able to do that. We were able to flip and be flexible. I'm just saying, I have a lot of colleagues out there, chaplains, who have not been on their campuses face-to-face or near a student in over a year. And I don't have that experience. We were here. Some of our students did not have access to Wi-Fi or did not have a space that could guarantee their learning. They stayed on campus. We kept 140 students here. in the residence halls. They had to, had to kind of go and get carry-out meals from the dining hall, but they adjusted to that in a safe way, and they did their learning for the rest of the semester. They went online. Our faculty, oh my goodness, I mean, they flipped it in a week, from person to person to online, and works a miracle. They really, really did that. So we were able to at least keep in contact with those students who were on campus and those who were online, and that made a huge difference. So we were excited and nervous about going back to classes on campus even in May last year, but all the furniture's been shifted. What you don't see in here right now is that we have blue tape everywhere. Painter's tape, we have X's here, and I got the measuring tape out there for 6 feet, that kind of thing. Now we've gotten used to it enough, we can eyeball it, and we don't have to pull.
But there's still physical and social distancing required.
Absolutely, and masks.
And
then
masks.
green screens. We call them the green screens,
Oh,
and
yes,
that's
you
a
get on your cell
program
phone.
you get on your cell phone,
Yep.
and it helps us to know that. We did require in January, before you came to campus, you had to go over to Hunt Physical Education Center and take an antigen test. So we had enough in-house expertise to be able to do that properly, and so everybody had to have that if they were going to be on campus. And then we restricted outside groups for January and February. We're just now kind of beginning to open up, and part of that is we have seen the results in the pandemic in that we have very, very low numbers, and that's very helpful to us. And it eases the stress on the individuals in the community to be able to say, I can relax just a little bit. Of course, everybody is looking forward to taking off the face mask and even the shield. I've gotten used to the shield. Sometimes I sat down yesterday at lunch and forgot I had it on, and then tried to put a shovel, shovel a spoonful of salad in my face, and there it was. So, those things. But we look forward to that. Our students thrive on face-to-face. They thrive on getting to sit with each other and talk to each other. And boy, that's been the key to our interfaith work, is we have students that really want to know about each other. I like curiosity. It's good for us. So that's been a key piece of this work, and I've never made any bones about it from the moment at which I interviewed to come back and serve at my alma mater to today, and that is that I'm unashamedly Christian, but I have great understanding in some areas and more that I need to learn in other areas. And I just think we're all part of the family of God, and we can figure that out. We can work a lot of stuff out that way. So it's been a real blessing to be here and to be a part of that journey. So it's kind of exciting.
Is this the band that we're hearing in the
Yep,
background?
they're practicing.
So I was wondering if we could sit down for
Let's
a
do
moment
that.
on the chancel and then close the chapel doors so that I
You
can...
won't hear as much noise now. Yeah. So, they sound pretty good. For a pandemic band, they also have to wear face masks, special face masks for their instruments. Oh, yeah.
Well,
They really look
I
funny.
bet so.
Let me catch this up.
All right.
So, let me just show you too, in case you want to see this. This is some of the bowl of tears. And it takes a few days for that ink to go down. Here, I'll let you see that. So, I'll let the secret out. We visited McMurry University in Atlanta with some pre-seminary students over spring break. Julia did that, my assistant. And they found this out in the area of the chapel there at Canberra School of Theology. And they asked, what is this? And they said, this is our bowl of tears. And if you're really having some stress, you want to put that in there. So we have twice now offered a bowl of tears for students to be able to write anything, or even me, I'll write something out when I'm stressed and want to come offer it up. So it's worked out.
You just put it in there.
Yeah, and let it go. Like Elsa. Sorry. It's a good thing to learn. And because we can't touch each other, we can't hug, we can't get close, you need something physical that helps that physicality. Do that way. We've increased our prayer walks. Oh, and one of the things I've forgotten to say, we had a prayer poll on campus from the global project, Make Peace Prevail Upon the Earth, based on a Hiroshima survivor's wish out of Japan, and he created that project. Well, the poll itself, it just was old, and it had been here a long time and in the elements, and I asked if we could go ahead and use some funds that we had received and buy a new one. So we did. And then we began the search for a place maybe that was a little bit easier for us to use and to utilize. Well, we have a peace pole now in Wildwood Placey Park in the corner, and a bed, a special bed, and we have had several gatherings there. And on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we actually gathered and did a prayer walk around campus and ended at the peace pole, especially for one of the leaders in peace. And then I asked people, share your dream of peace. And so we ran around, again, socially spaced with face masks, but we did a prayer for peace. We dedicated the pole in the fall and did that. We had a Diwali gathering there.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a festival of lights, so we just strung some lights on the pole. So, we work on trying to find ways to educate students, especially in a fun way. This time last year, we learned a lesson. We announced that we were going to do a holly, a celebration of the Festival of Colors, and we had the powders. Well, unfortunately, in the United States, people think if you have colored powder, you're doing a color run, where you throw it at each other. That's not what holly's about. And one of our Hindu students was very upset, and rightly so, that we needed to do more educating before we announced holly and the powders, so that people understand it was not a fun run. It was for a festival of spring, and here's the story behind it. This is why Hindus celebrate Holi. So we learned a good lesson, and that's actually important on a campus anyway, not only to learn from your successes, but to learn from your failures.
Sure.
And that's been really helpful to us. And we had a ball. I was covered. And the students like, okay, we're going to hit the chaplain. Bam! And so all this color powder, but it was a blast. And it made us feel like we could be a part of the celebration of spring. And we learned more about what it meant. And then we said, next time, when we decide to do it again, we'll do it properly, do much more educating and that kind of thing. And we spent some time, our Hindu student was actually very appreciative of us apologizing for doing it, not getting enough information out, and then really reaching out and saying, okay, tell us how to do it right.
Yeah.
Because that's the key. That's the key. So for me, the journey for helping students to understand there's a connection here. It's not a color run, but it's a joyous celebration of spring. And spring is a good thing.
It is, and it's just literally a few days away.
It is this year.
Yeah.
It was earlier in March, so we got to do Holi, and then we went into pandemic. But it was good for us, and part of that has been our Better Together Alliance student group has really kind of spearheaded opportunities for conversations. Each year, we came in here one day, and again, this is always going to be a Christian space. The chapel will be the chapel. It reflects the heritage and tradition of the university and our intention to remain that way. At the same time, it welcomes others to share their journeys with us and for us to find common ground.
Sure.
Because that's the process that helps us to learn and to grow together. So we've had presentations in here from other groups, understanding then that the connecting piece is that we are all created in the image of God. And that for Christians, this space has special meaning. Just like you said, it's a holy space.
Yeah.
And in that holy space is respect for one another and respect for the journey that we have together.
But Marty, just real quick,
Okay.
I had a chance to talk to Marty before our interview, and it was very helpful. I really appreciate it, and I learned a lot. And so just earlier you said this is a very Christian space.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were talking on the phone, you were saying that when you had a chance to help you helped curate a Jewish
a Jewish exhibit at a United Methodist University.
That's amazing. But you found out that a lot of some of the traditions, some of the rituals in a church,
our roots are there.
Rooted in Judaism.
Sure. Well, Jesus was Jewish.
Exactly.
He didn't go, okay, I'm starting something new. I mean, that was a byproduct of the next piece. So when you start looking at commonality, and when we talk about the Abrahamic covenant, we're talking about Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all having a common root. Mm-hmm. There are reasons for things that we do. There are reasons when we go into what we call the Eucharist or the Lord's Supper or communion, that bread has its roots in that Jewish Seder. That cup of grape juice or wine has its roots in there. Now, we have a way of understanding it as Christians because of words that have been brought together, brought from those chroniclers of that time, those who were witnesses, that Jesus said, this is what this means. Now, in other traditions, no, it's not going to mean that. But that's okay. We still have an understanding that this is, in Judaism, the bread of the earth, the fruit of the vine. And there's a nice 60s song, but don't think about it, okay? It's already hit my head about what that
all
means.
The lyrics are
the lyrics start running around. But it's something that can be a tie to understand. Because the other part of what we've learned from interfaith work is one of the greatest parts, and you can tell for me right there, is food is a really great place to gather and learn. So when we had the Diwali gathering, those folks at Spicy India treated us real well. It was wonderful. Holly, at the same time, we had some foods from Spicy India because it gave us a sense of learning more about one another and learning what food does, because food is a real common thing that people can come together. Our most attended, and Dr. Waters can confirm this, some of our most attended gatherings on campus are when we have international food time.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, it's good. And we even did an international, tea and cookies or something, Dr. Waters? Yeah. I love that. So I have a connection because my son teaches English in South Korea and has been there, it's coming up on 10 years. So, and he's married. He's married to a young woman who's South Korean. And I have found a lot of things that are really similar culturally, and so I wanted to make sure that we had some stuff that was Korean in the tea party. So I brought my favorite tea from Korea, and that was good. I've learned a lot about the traditions and customs again of those religious bodies that make up that community. But I've had a great life. At my previous university where I served, I got to teach the international sport management students world religions in one day as they were trying to figure out how they, as people who managed things like the Olympics, how did they do it with all those teams from around the world? And I love to just shoot questions at them. And it's the same here. And one of those questions would be, do you understand that you can't have alcohol next to the Muslim booth? Okay? Don't do that. Don't do that to them. Don't be that way. So, where would you put your concessions? How would you make sure that you don't have a pork hot dog in the same concession with a halal chicken leg or whatever, turkey leg or something? In that sense, it was kind of fun to have students know that. And said, what about graven images, which are talked about in these traditions? Can you do that in a way that gets your don't get a bobblehead Muhammad, that doesn't work. That's not allowed. But you might have a bobblehead Buddha, depends. Not the Olympics are a little tricky, but it was one of those opportunities. We talked about some of that with students here too, is what are ways in which our respect for another person allows us to learn how to understand what is okay for us but not okay for them, and to consider ways in which you can make that less of a pressure point. How we do that. So I think that that's been a very important part of even the culture of the region, is to remember that we have this jewel that is Abilene, Texas. I mean, my husband's from Cleveland, Ohio, urban Cleveland, Ohio, and when I came out to interview for this position, he was so excited when I met him after all my day of interviews. I sent him out and did some tourist things. Go to Frontier, Texas. Go to Betty Rose's little brisket. That kind of stuff. He came back. He loved it. He said, I love the variety and diversity of culture here in Abilene. I never expected it. And I said, dude, welcome. This is Abilene. And as I learned more about the International Rescue Committee and how those communities have settled in our midst and what they have done and provided and added to the richness of this community, it's wonderful. So, we inherited in, help me out, Dr. Waters, 2015 or 2016?
I don't know what you're leading to.
The Saudi students from soccer.
Yeah, 2015.
2015, we inherited this neat program where the Saudi Arabian government paid all or almost all of both the tuition and living expenses for students to come and study here. It was very popular. I mean, our little campus suddenly had this influx of students, and it was obvious. There were some things to see in the way in which they looked and they interacted with folks. And I know that, please help me when I get my history wrong, but I think history came correctly, is that there was a point at which the students needed a place for prayer. Friday Juma prayer is important to the Muslim community, and they were having some difficulty in Abilene being able to do that without people being fearful of a gathering that they were not familiar with. And so a request was made to the university, could we find a place to do that? And as I understand it from Dr. Waters, here initially in the campus center, there was an extra kind of office classroom space, and there was not enough room. So a decision was made to then share a space on the edge of campus where the students could have that opportunity.
And so you're now talking about the Muslim
prayer room. Right.
And that preceded your time here. That
sure did.
Started in 2015.
Correct. Sure did.
So I kind of want to, there's, as usual with all the people we interview, it's like we just get to scratch the surface. We don't get to go into detail. I have so many more questions, but we're kind of on a time schedule.
We are on a time schedule.
We probably need to get to that prayer room, but as we're leaving, maybe tell me a little bit about what the prayer room is not. Some people might have a misconception, and there was a bit of a controversy.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the controversy until much later, and I've had opportunities to say to some people in the community that I have met and gotten to know, here, let me tell you what it's like, and that helps them to understand, this is not a political gathering.
Yep.
This is a group of people that are literally reading a testament, just like an Old and New Testament, and trying to live by practicing charity and hospitality and being fair and faithful and respectful. I mean, the pillars that are part of that are really incredibly important. My experiences that I brought from my 26 years at the University in Ohio, where I served, was that we had a Muslim prayer room we had just set up a Buddhist prayer room. We had this ginormous old house across the street, and that's what we used it. It wasn't handicap accessible, and that was my one gripe, but we had a space for the women to wash, the men to wash, the Muslim. We had a divider in the room so we could have that separated space, because women and men need to have separated space for worship in the Muslim tradition. And we respect that, and that makes sense to do it that way. And we were going to add a Jewish prayer space so that if we had enough students, we didn't have a large Jewish population. We didn't have a large Muslim student population, but we wanted to make that possible. Yeah, but that made it possible to do that here. Yeah. When I came into it, I was thrilled that it happened. I was not thrilled that some of our alumni were very unhappy, feeling like somehow we were veering from our roots as Christians. In my way of thinking, we were strengthening our roots as Christians by providing the care and the respect for another tradition. We have to not just talk about it and try to force it down someone's throat. We have to live it. And one of the best ways I know how to live it is to be caring and kind and genuine and respectful, and allow people to ask those questions. Then when they say, well, why do you do this the way you do this? Because that's what I believe I as a Christian should do and be. And it's hard enough right there.
Well, shall we go? Okay, so we are here at the Muslim prayer room here at McMurry University. It has been transferred over here to the apartment area. It was once in a different location, but now it is here. So thank you so much, Marty, for bringing us here. You were saying earlier that the rugs are sacred, and you can't really step on those, but those are...
that's personal property.
Personal property, okay. Very good. Awesome. Well, this is really interesting.
It's a very simple space.
Yeah.
And many the inside of a mosque is. I think if we could be able to put more into it, we would, but we know that we're going to have a different space in the renovated campus center. And so I think we'll keep it simple.
That's awesome.
You can tell that there are some announcements that help us, because then our students in Arabic, they have at least that. The prayers that are there, so this helps our students in there. On the bookcase, we do have a couple of Qurans, and I don't know where my book stands are, but they're somewhere around. Because again, if you want to put your holy words out, there's a little, oh, they're right there, the symbol. You can put your book on the book stand, the wooden book stand, and then the sacred text doesn't get dirtied. And so let me just show you it, as an example, because this will not get him in trouble. This is some of the materials that he has used in his teaching. This is one of those book stands, and it's very simple. You simply place it in here, and then if you're on the floor and you're in your prayer space, then you can put your text there. They have gathered in here after Friday Juma prayers and had refreshments in here. It's been kind of fun to see that. So you've been here just iftar for Ramadan. And right now the calendar for Muslim students is that it's getting earlier and earlier in the semester because of the way the Muslim calendar runs. Because when I first got here, Ramadan was in the summer. School was out. It now starts like April 13th. So we're still in our semester, and so learning to make accommodations. I mean, there's no food, there's no water, unless you have special permissions. Now, obviously some exceptions. Women who are bearing children and small children can have water at least, but for everyone else, the whole effort is to try to make sure that you don't. And I worried so much that first year that it was coming in the middle of finals, and I thought, oh, this is the worst time. But I don't dictate that calendar, but I do remember saying to faculty members, would you do this? So one of the things that I started doing when I first got here is we actually put out a holy days calendar for the semester, and we try to indicate if somebody needs an accommodation. So like a student that is Jewish that wants to be there for Seder, actually Passover starts on Sunday this year, and so you could be with your family and not have to worry about it. But when you do Yom Kippur, High Holy Day, again, that's a 24-hour fast for that community. And I have said to faculty, please, and staff, please allow students to be able to do that, to practice that piece of it. It's an accommodation for them. And I've not had anybody get ugly about it. It's been very nice to have that.
You've had pushback.
Right.
You have
No. And I think part of that is that we have some variety of religious expression in our faculty as well.
Yeah.
So we have some Jewish folks. I know we have, in the global Christian context, we have a lot of Christians of all kinds of flavors, as I call them, varieties. Orthodox, Catholic, Anglican, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, Lutheran, Church of Christ, Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness, Latter-day Saints. I mean, we have that spectrum. So, if there's a need for accommodations or something like that, then I take that into consideration. So, being aware of those restrictions is really important. So I actually buy, and I can recommend it. If you go to www.interfaith.org or interfaithcalendar.org, you get this nifty noodle calendar that has a lot of the major world religions in it, from Zoroastrianism, Sikhism, please let me pronounce that right, Hinduism, Baha'i, Christianity, Eastern and Western Christianity. So it's really good about getting our Orthodox and our other Western Christian traditions. Judaism, some indigenous peoples. The calendar actually comes out of Canada, so there's a little more Canadian indigenous information in there. It's really cool. And I've made a practice of, I buy so many, some for our Better Together Alliance students. Dr. Waters gets one because he's my buddy, and I always know he wants to have one to keep track of. It's a really cool calendar. And then I market what I know are going to be major holidays, so that, and we have both Wiccan and pagan, but I've now begun to say, because it seems a little bit easier to do the classification, is I call it earth religions, so that it is a little easier for some people to understand what that means for some. There are Celts, there's a Celtic community here, there's a northern European community. We've had a member active with that group. So in order to be sensitive to that and not trigger things that are negative for people, sometimes it's easier to use a different name so that I don't say, and I'm clear about that. Native American spirituality is very, very full of a lot of different things. So in Native traditions, one community in this part of the world is not the same as another community in another part of the world. And so we make an assumption about Native spirituality. We're really doing ourselves it's not a favor, disfavor. Yeah.
Disservice.
Thank you, disservice by making an assumption that way. I would not like for somebody to assume something about United Methodism that is totally untrue and generically paint everybody with that same brush.
Well, and I like people, I'm curious about what their lives are like and what can we find in common? What can we disagree on respectfully? And, how can we make it work?
Now, do you ever minister, I know you probably minister to students, but do you ever minister to staff and faculty?
Oh, yeah. My understanding of my role on campus is, yes, I have responsibility with students,
Yep.
but, their parents often.
Sure.
I used to call it the ministry of the Kleenex box. When parents, and this has happened in both places that I've worked, parents have this moment when they've set the child here on campus, and they gotta leave. And so I used to walk around the parking lot with a box of Kleenex, and inevitably there's a parent who is having a hard time letting go and leaving. And I would just offer a Kleenex and a word of care and say to them, my name is such and so. You can call the switchboard anytime you need to talk. Let me know how I can. It's something simple, but it is something that we need to be doing. Because I know when my own kid went to college, we were there so many hours, and then I turned to my husband and I said, it is now time for me to leave. I have to go. Yeah. Boom. Because I said, I'm not crying on this campus. I now got in the car, I could be a whole pub. But at that point, it was time for me to make that break and to go. Same thing with the daughter. Less so since she was there a little bit early. So we didn't see all the other parents in the same place. But, there is a point when you have to take that leave taking, and that's a ministry. If there's trustees and I know something's going on, I reach out, I keep a really long prayer list because it's really important. It's important to me because I care and it matters to us. We have this connection. And when a trustee is struggling, when I'm alumni, I had an alumni counseling session this week. Somebody came in because they needed to talk. I'm not going to tell a retiree, you can't come in and talk, because we have a relationship. And I did have some ability to answer that question. You need to do that. So, the great thing to me about chaplaincy is you do have a rhythm and a flow today, but it's not boring. I mean, it is, every day is a new day. It's different. Different things happen, and you go with it. So, there have been days when it's hard to get up and get in. I'm not a meeting kind of person. I'm not fond of sitting through meetings. I'll do it because it comes with the job. But I'm more excited about taking a walk and stroll on campus and saying hi to people. And being able to, how are you doing today? Or, oh, I like your shoes. Just uplift somebody. And students will sometimes go to, says that to somebody around me, who's that lady? And I said, that's our chaplain. I said, I just want you to know that I see you and that you mean something. And if you have cool shoes, I'm going to tell you have cool shoes. If you have a neat hoodie on, or, if there's a team, sport logo, oh, how's your team doing? Really good ways to just be with each other.
And you told me once you were in a play, so I presume that you've gone over and seen some shows at our theater department.
Oh yeah, I was there. I didn't get to do Wait Until Dark, but yeah, Godspell, they actually came to chapel.
It was wonderful, wasn't it?
Oh,
I loved
great.
Godspell.
So yeah, and I got this deal with Kerry Goff that he and I are trying to get a group to come onto campus that he knows that does some really great chapel drama. So we were hoping to be able to bring that piece them too. But I've asked him, anytime you have a musical or something in there that you think would be appropriate for us to share in chapel, we want you. Because that is a really, some of the first and most important learning that's happened in the story of Christianity were plays. Plays actually tended to be religious dramas in many parts of the Middle Ages, and so in the European part of the world. And so you gotta think about, wow, how do our children learn? They learn from what they see, and a play does that for them. And in churches, when people were not educated, when there was an educated clergy but not an educated congregation, how did they learn best? They learned by rote, yes, and memorization, but also they learned from the plays. So in music is a huge connection.